Hello and thank you for tuning in. You're watching The Property Guide on ET Now. I'm Faye D'Souza. This is your one-stop guide to property investments in India. Once again, thank you so much for the responses you sent in during the week. Keep them coming in. Our email ID is at the bottom of your screen. We're going to try and answer as many of those questions on this show. Over the next half hour, our experts tell us which Tier 2 city will give you the highest return in the next year. We'll talk about the Maharashtra government's move to hike ready reckoner rates in the state. What does this mean for you? And in our Meet the Developer segment, we focus on Rustomji. All right, joining us today on the show, Ashutosh Limaye, Head of Research at Jones Lang LaSalle, and Jayashree Kurup, Head of Content at Magic Bricks. It's a pleasure to have them both on the show. All right, we talked about all of the metros on this show, and I want to start focusing on Tier 2 cities, which is the second rung. But we also know that over the last 5 or 6 years, Tier 2 cities are giving far higher returns than we had expected. Also, the rentals are far higher than we expected as well. The reason why I've got together these two wonderful guests is that they're both experts in this particular area. I'm going to start with Jayashree right now. Jayashree, you look at the website on a regular basis. Tell us which of these cities, in terms of Tier 2, do you expect the most growth from?
Actually, across the Tier 2 markets, I see a lot of, if you're an investor, there is a lot of return that you can get out of these markets. I'll tell you the reason. Capital values have not gone up exponentially. In 40, 50 lakh, you can get a really, really good property, 2 BHK, 3 BHK. And the rental returns have, for some reason, been steadily rising. Today, in many of these small markets, that is, I would say, Vadodara, I see roughly about 4.5%, 5% returns, which for residential is very good. And in some other markets, I think we are seeing a rise in property rental returns. So, you know, it's very much like the big cities. You see 12,000, 15,000, 25,000 per month returns, and you have actually invested only about 40 lakh. So the yield that you get out of your property is fairly high, and that is one reason why I think there is a lot of interest in Tier 2 markets.
Well, give us a list of names in terms of the cities where you see the most interest in for end user buying. So if I'm an investor looking for which city to focus on, which one would you point me in?
The Vizag market, Bhubaneswar, Vadodara, Indore, Nagpur. These are all cities, the cities that are driven by good quality commercial demand, which means it could either be driven by IT and ITES, or it could be driven by manufacturing. In Nagpur's case, I think there is a lot of warehousing business as well that is happening, and therefore the end user demand for rental properties has risen.
Ashutosh, do you agree with that list? Vizag, Bhubaneswar, Vadodara, Indore, Nagpur. Is that also what's popping up in your research as well, or do you have more to add to it?
I think those cities are certainly up there on the real estate map when it comes to Tier 2 and Tier 3 markets. I would add some names to that as well. Kochi, Mangalore, Jaipur, Lucknow, Kanpur. So I think India is a very populous country, and we have 54 cities with a million plus population. And Tier 2, 3 cities are now showing the promise. I think the trend of nuclearization of families and urbanization is taking shape everywhere. It is not only the big metros that are seeing this, but the relatively smaller cities are also witnessing that. And then people are changing their ways of living life, and they look at big cities in terms of what different offerings are available, and they want to experience that as well.
So if I were to take advantage of this social change that you just mentioned, would that mean that as an investor I should go into these cities and pick up apartments instead of maybe villas and land, because that social change would then lend itself to resale prices of apartments, wouldn't it?
I think it will be a close call, because as citizens of big cities, we are thrilled with villas and plots because we don't get to buy them with high entry barrier in big cities. But at the same time, I think in smaller cities, I think the demand is more for apartments, particularly from the rental housing perspective. People usually will go with villa and plot in their mind, but I would advise them to consider apartments as well.
Jayashree, if you talked about the fact that the Indore market is going to be one of the most successful markets, give us areas within Indore that we should focus on right now.
In Indore, the super corridor is something that the government has planned. The super corridor is planned by the Indore Development Authority, and there is a very large stretch, about a 12 to 13 kilometer stretch, starting from the airport right up to Vijay Square within the city. And in this area, you have, it has been proposed that it should be evolve as a commercial hub, and it has large IT, SEZ, educational, sports, medical hubs. So you see, it's a very well-planned corridor. And within this corridor, there is a lot of commercial and residential projects that have been proposed. You have the DLF, which has launched a very large project here. You have Omax, Malwa County. National developers have moved into Indore, seeing the potential of the city, and the super corridor is one area where there is a lot of interest in Indore, both from the supply side, because developers have launched projects, and from the demand side, I think it is a very well searched area in the Indore market on our website. You also have, I think, TCS and Infosys have acquired huge land parcels, over 100 acres in these areas. So that is an area of interest. The other areas I would say is about the Khandwa Road and the Bypass Road, both of which we see a lot of searches happening.
Now, Ashutosh, I want to ask you about Nagpur and Vizag. Now, Jayashree did mention the fact that there is a lot of warehousing happening in Nagpur. There's not as much IT, but there is a lot of other businesses that are mushrooming there. If someone is looking to make an investment in Nagpur, where would you like them to focus their attention?
I think Nagpur has seen a lot of infrastructure development on the southern corridor, which is the Mihan corridor, and the Wardha Road, Butiburi industrial estate side. And I think that is a much talked about corridor, and several developers have taken exposure there. Several investors also have taken exposure there. But I think that corridor has a longer gestation time, because it's linked with the Mihan project and the airport modernization program. I think not many people have really understood Nagpur's city potential. I think besides the Jamtha and the Wardha Road Mihan stretches, within the city, like Mumbai, Nagpur has old factories and mills which are now defunct. And we have good redevelopment projects which are taking shape in Nagpur city proper. Be it Ganesh Pet or be it the Gandhi Sagar Talav. So the location is very well within the city center, and at the same time you can have the luxury of integrated development, gated communities, all the contemporary amenities. So I think those projects I would highly recommend to investors to consider.
I also want to ask you about Vizag. Now, within south of India, there was a lot of talk about Mysore and Mangalore maybe 5 odd years ago. That talk has died down quite a lot, but Vizag is still going very strong. Now, if I'm looking at Vizag, should I be looking at the beachfront? Is that the only thing worth looking at, or should we look at the rest of the city as well?
No, I think Vizag is much more than the seafront, and I think Vizag is a city which is unique in many ways. It has got large institutional, defense and industrial establishments, meaning that the economic base is diverse. It is perhaps the most cosmopolitan city of Andhra after Hyderabad, and I think Vizag has got seafront, it has got hills, it has got plains, and it has got substantial areas which are no development areas. It could be the defense establishments, it could be the factories. So Vizag has a lot of chance to grow like an amoeba, and where there could be surprises along different corridors, different scenic.
Give us locations within Vizag that you think make sense at this point.
I would place the Bimuli-Patnam corridor to be a promising one. It gives you hills, it gives you seafront, and it gives you great infrastructure to connect with the city. And of course, we have Voltaire. So those would be my picks.
Those are the picks then for Tier 2 cities. Now, if you have a city in mind that you are looking at and you'd want us to review it on the show, write to us on our email ID at the bottom of your screen. I'm also going to leave you with some very quick investment options within Tier 2 cities, and then we'll come back and answer some questions. If you're looking to make an investment in a Tier 2 city, here are some projects you might want to consider. In Vadodara, Riviera by Pratham Developers and Sanidhya by Srinath Group. In Nagpur, Daffodils by the Pioneer Group and City 4 by Pyramid Group. In Vizag, Florence by Novus Infra, Gold Coast by Chaitanya Kiran Housing. And finally in Indore, DCNPL Hills and Vihar by Sarthak Estate Developers. All right, so that was a list of investments that you can focus on at this point. Time for us to take a very quick break, but when we come back, we'll talk about how the Maharashtra government has hiked the ready reckoner rates in the state and what this means for you as a prospective home buyer. Don't go anywhere.